Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm happy you're joining me here today. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love, and I'm Tomas Garza, your host. Oh, we've got a sweatshirt behind me draped over the couch and a curtain behind me. I am here in Western Oregon, where I'll be for the remainder of the week with my wife, Cindy. We've been up here to visit friends and family. My daughter lives up here, and well, we've lived in this area for a considerable bit of time here in this lifetime. This is where my wife Cindy is from, right around this area. And we're about 45 miles south and west of Portland, Oregon, here in the Willamette Valley. So it's very beautiful. We've been with friends and family on a camping trip. And well, this is where I'll be broadcasting live today, tomorrow, and Saturday before we head back to Arizona. So welcome. Yesterday on the show, we had a very succinct idea, and I think that I only talked for about 12 minutes. That's a pretty remarkably short period of time. That is, in fact, the shortest live stream that I've done on this show to date. And the idea for yesterday is I would enter into his presence now. It's fairly self-explanatory. And today, in lesson 158 in the workbook, we've got a little bit more explaining to do because we're talking about the idea of giving and receiving, and we're giving what we've already received. This is one of the areas where A Course in Miracles really undoes the ego, which is what we're all looking for. So I'm glad you're joining me here today. Feel welcome to pop in here. I've got the live stream up here and say hello. Let us know you're joining us. And if you have, as always, any comments or questions, feel welcome to leave them here in the comment thread. And I will get to all of them that I can right here on the live. If you're catching me on the replay, leave them anyway, and I'll get to them on the replay for sure. All right. So hello, everyone that's watching and tuning in right now here. Comments and questions are welcome. This is an idea here in lesson 158 that the ego finds insane. It finds it inimical, threatening. Well, yeah, very, very threatening. So let's do our part today and entertain this idea and the commentary that follows. And let's do our part to undo the illusion of separation. What else? All right. Lesson 158 is, today I learned to give as I receive. Today I learned to give as I receive. We've got it backwards in the world, especially if we're identifying with the ego being a mistake, merely a mistake, a separate sense of self. When we identify with the ego, we associate giving with loss, don't we? Each of us in our lives has had multiple experiences of giving something and feeling then like we were out. If you give someone money, you're out. If you give them $100, let's say, you're out $100. Words like sacrifice go into this. We see ourselves as being less than if we give. That's what happens when we side with the ego, when we choose the ego instead of our higher self. So, A Course in Miracles and spirituality across the board in general describes this differently. A Course in Miracles is very, very clear that what you give away, you keep. In fact, you give something away to keep it in your mind. If you project fear, guess what? You can't get rid of it. You keep it because you're giving it away. That's what happens when we side with the ego, and the crime lords of the world are always paranoid because they've kept all of the paranoia and attack thoughts in their minds. Same with all of us. We're no different than any of them. There is no separation of any kind, as we'll see in the commentary on today's lesson. So it doesn't matter if you've never even had a parking ticket. If we try to project our fear, which we naturally will, our feelings of guilt onto someone else when we place blame, we're keeping that in our mind. You give it something in order to keep it. So what would happen, therefore, if you were to side with God, with your higher self, with love, and extend love instead, extend forgiveness instead? You would keep it. That's what happens. We give things in order to keep them in our minds. Now, what have we received? Well, we've received nothing less than the gift of life itself. I mean, I could end the live stream right there, right? We've received nothing less than the gift of life and love itself. It's who we are. And the experience of this is not, by the way, something that we can learn. It's our true nature. It's beyond learning. And A Course in Miracles is very, very clear about this. It is something that we experience. It is called in the Course Revelation, and I don't mean the book of Revelation from the Bible. I mean direct experience of our oneness with God, which is the nature not only of who we are, but of all reality. When we say God is, and we leave it at that, that is a statement in words that comes about as close as words can to the experience of ultimate truth, our oneness with God, which is beyond words. It's beyond all concepts. It's beyond perception. In your spiritual studies, in whatever tradition this has looked like, you may have seen or run across this idea. You may have heard it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Well, I love that. We need to hear things dozens and dozens and dozens of times until it sinks in and we begin then to take action on it. So perhaps this is the 15,000th time that you've heard this. Good. Let it be the day that you take it to heart and begin to take action on it. Let that day be today, right now. We've received nothing less than the gift of life itself. And we just looked at the idea that's prominent in A Course in Miracles, that revelation, in other words, the direct experience of our oneness with God, is actually beyond the scope of this course. What then can we learn to give as we've received? Well, we can learn to give what lesson 158 refers to as Christ's vision, the vision of Christ. Another way of looking at this is pure perception. We perceive everything in the world as upside down. We could perceive it differently. That's what A Course in Miracles is all about. It is a spiritual path. It is a self-study course that helps us along the way to perceiving things correctly. I'll talk in a minute about what that means. What happens when we reach pure perception is that God takes the final step himself. We then are as close as we can come here in the world to revelation, to the direct experience of our oneness with God, which then proceeds automatically from there. A Course describes it as God taking the final step himself, which is what happens. So we get as close as we possibly can to that point. Now, what is Christ's vision? Well, it is the vision of each and every one of us, all of your brothers, sisters, every living thing, not as a body, but as what we really are, beyond a body. Spirit, in other words. Lesson 158 talks about a light that lies behind, and you could say through, or on the other side of the appearance of a physical body. We could choose to see this light. This is perceiving every living thing, not as a body, but as spirit, as one with God. You know? It is not acknowledging separation. It's seeing that, in fact, there is no separation of any kind. This is something that I say throughout this live stream. I've repeated it many times. You'll hear it again. You'll hear it again several times between now and the time I end the broadcast here today. There is no separation of any kind. So, seeing this way, we then naturally, quite naturally, forgive. We're forgiving the illusion of separation. When you forgive someone else, you are forgiving the illusion of separateness, the illusion of separation, which never happened, by the way. It's unreal, and nothing unreal exists. Similarly, nothing real can be threatened. So the truth of who we really are cannot be threatened. It cannot be blocked by us. We can simply choose to ignore it because we have free will. And well, that's exactly what has happened. Now, understand, and lesson 158 makes very clear on this, that in time, each and every one of us will reach this point that I'm talking about. We will purify all of our perception, making way for revelation, the direct experience of our oneness with God. That time has already been appointed, and we're on a journey where the end is predetermined, and it's certain. So I can say with 100% certainty that you will wake up. Now, you can choose to delay that. Doesn't have to be right now. Doesn't have to be in this lifetime. So if you're skeptical about that, just know that it doesn't have to be right now. You have the power to choose that direction. You have the power to choose that. We all do. But your awakening to the truth, your awakening to who and what you are, to what we all are, is 100% certain. So the question then remains for each of us in the world, how soon do we want to experience this? Do we want to experience it right now? This is the miracle of the present moment. It is an opportunity for us to choose yet again, to choose love instead of fear, to choose God instead of the ego, to choose our higher self instead of our limited little self that can't do anything right. We choose that far too often in the world. And what do we get? Well, we get pandemics. We get people eating each other on social media, the vaccinated ripping apart the unvaccinated ripping apart the vaccinated. If it's not a pandemic and a series of shots, it's going to be something else tomorrow. As long as you identify with the ego, conflict will continue. Why? Because you will not see things as they are. You'll see separation. We could choose not to see separation. Now, how do you do this? Spiritual practice. This workbook, your spiritual practice, your own meditations, your own prayer. Ask your guides for assistance. This is how we do it. If you have questions for me, type questions in the comment thread or send me a message on Facebook. I'm always on Messenger. These are little actions that you can take. And I hope that you may be moved to take them. If not today, then maybe tomorrow. There are resources here at your disposal that we have no excuse to ignore. Have you reached that point? I think you have. You are watching Enlightened World Network. You are not watching TikTok videos right now. There's a bunch of other stuff on YouTube. So why this? Yeah, this is a question I hope you ask yourself when you're tuned in to any form of spiritual related broadcasting. Why are you watching this right now? You could ask yourself, okay, why am I watching this program right here, right now? What is so significant about this? And what do I need to hear today? What do I need to learn in order to take the next step on my journey? Ask yourself that. If you've tuned into this entire broadcast, chances are you've heard a couple of things that may hit home with you. And I continue to show up and teach because it is my calling to be a spiritual coach and teacher, and I fulfill that role gladly. And you know what? You never know who may be watching. So you yourself are also a teacher. Doesn't matter if you hold yourself out as a teacher or a coach or an instructor or a presenter or anything. Why? You're always communicating with other people. You're always either projecting your own guilt and fear or you're extending love. That is the choice between love or fear. Remember that what you give away, in other words, what you put out there, as the dog walks behind me. Hey, Rusty. What you put out there, you keep in your mind. We give things away in order to keep them in our minds. We have the power to choose extending love or projecting guilt, fear, rage, frustration, and blame. And that list can go on and on and on. So knowing that, choose to extend love. And as always, with a workbook lesson here in A Course in Miracles, there's ample material available for you to delve deeper into the study of this extraordinary self-study curriculum, which is what this is. It is not a religion, thank God. We don't need another one of those, do we? This is a self-study curriculum. You can literally go at your own pace. And if you have questions, reach out to me. And if you don't want to do that, type in lesson 158, ACIM, in your search bar, and Google will bring up a wealth of information. Beautiful erudite commentaries, explanations, the course text itself, the commentary itself of the day's idea, which today I learned to give as I receive. There is information that's readily available to you right now, today. So I invite, and indeed I do challenge you to take advantage of that. Oh yeah, challenge. Do it. I know you're ready. You're watching this. Okay. So the only person you're fooling is yourself, right? And that doesn't do anyone any good. All right, guys. So thank you all for tuning in. We've had a number of people tuning in. I just want to give you a shout out here. Hi, Brenda. Brenda, and it looks like Lilia. All right, and Toriel. Okay, how are you guys doing here? And Christina. Hey, how are you? Thanks for tuning in here, everyone. If you all have any questions, feel welcome to leave these in this chat. This does stay open all day. It's available on Enlightened World Network's Facebook page. And by the way, the YouTube channel for Enlightened World Network hosts all of the shows on the network all of the back episodes. Every show has its own playlist. So if there is a particular day or a particular lesson in the workbook, we're on lesson 158 right now. If there's a past lesson that you'd like to take a look at, that is available on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. So definitely please take advantage of that. And thank you all for tuning in. I'll be broadcasting here live from the attic in Western Oregon tomorrow and Saturday before we head back down to Arizona. It's been a great road trip and a lot of fun. All right. Thank you all for joining me today, and I will see you back here again tomorrow.